Hello everyone, and welcome to Jerifik ASMR. And today I'm going to read you a story, a bedtime story. And you're probably thinking the quality looks different. That's because today I'm testing out my Poundland's selfie clip angle, selfie camera angle for phones from Poundland. So that's why the quality looks different. Hope you guys like it. And today's story I'm going to read is The Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty. Anyway, let's get reading. The Sleeping Beauty. Hope you guys enjoy. Once upon a time, a long time ago, so long indeed that even the very oldest people now alive could not remember it, they lived a king and queen in a beautiful place, a great white marble palace with white halls and high towers and a golden roof that flashed in the sun. And all round the palace for miles and miles there were lovely gardens and pleasure grounds, with terraces and green lawns, and ancient trees where the birds would sit and sing all day, and all night long, and more flowers than you can ever think. And if you were the whole summer through, there were peacocks and birds of paradise on the broad lawns, and pretty, slender brown deer in the shiny glades, and gold and silver fishes in the ponds and fountains. A great red and yellow fruits ripened in the orchards. There was everything that heart could wish, except just one, and that there was one thing in all the world that this king and queen wanted to make them perfectly happy. For there was no child little child to run and play the sunny gardens and pick the flowers, and pet the birds and beasts that wandered there, and this would often make them very sad. But at last, after many years, they had their wish, and a little baby daughter was born to them. A tiny child with a face like a blush rosebud, eyes like violets, and a little red mouth like the pimple flowers that grow in the cornfields and by the wayside in summertime. Now you can easily think how glad this king and queen were, what great rejoicings were made over all the country. Bonfires as big as haystacks were kept burning all night. And oxen were roasted whole in the market place of every town. The church bells were rung and rung again until the ringers were out of breath. Their arms were aching. Every little child in the kingdom was given a beautiful present for the baby princess's snake. In the palace, of course, all the bustle and hurry to make them for christening feast. The maids were busy putting flowers all about the halls and chambers, and sprinkling the shining floors with sweet-smelling leaves and petals. For the most important guests invited to this christening were 7 very powerful fairies, and you know I'm sure how particular fairies are about where they eat and drink. Not that even the very best of our seems strange to them. So the queen was very anxious that they should be pleased, for they had been asked to be godmothers for the baby princess, and she wanted them to be in a good humour so that they should be kind to her little one. It was a beautiful summer afternoon, and the roses on the palace terrace were nodding their heads sleepily in the warm and breeze where the fairies' chariots came into sight, sailing through the blue sky like a flight of bright winged butterflies. They were all good fairies and had known the king and queen all their lives long, and as they had not seen for the same time, there was a great deal to talk about, there much news to tell, and dear me, how pleased they were with the baby. They had agreed that she was the prettiest little darling they had ever seen. Almost as pretty as real fairy baby, and that was compliment indeed, I can tell you. And when they went into the great banqueting hall and sat down to table, They were even more delighted at first. For each one of them there were 6 golden dinner things: knife, spoon, fork, cup, dish and plate, made on purpose as a present for each. All different, was set with the pearls. One was set with pearls, another with diamonds, the third with rubies, the fourth with opals, the fifth with amethyst, the sixth with emeralds, the seventh with sapphires, and nobody could tell which was the most beautiful. They were just going to begin, and everybody was happy could be with all sudden of the clashing of brazen claws and rushing of wings. We just put the second music on. Rushings of wings, and something like a black cloud seemed to pass before the tall windows and darken all the rooms so that the guests could hardly see their plates. Then the great doors burst open with terrible bang, and the old fairy in a long trailing black gown, with her face almost hidden in a black hood, jumped out of a black chariot drawn by fierce griffins, and stalked up to the table. The king turned pale, and the queen nearly fainted away, for this was the spiteful fairy Tormentilla, who lived all alone an immense distance away from everywhere and everyone in a dismal black stone castle in the middle of the desert. The poor queen had been so happy, so busy, that she had forgotten all about her, and never sent her an invitation. However, they all tried to make the best of it. Another chair was brought, another place laid for Tormentilla. Both the king and queen told her over and over again how very, very sorry they were not to have to ask her. It was all vain. Second could please her. She would eat and drink nothing. She sat scolding and looking angrily at the other fairies, jeweled cups and dishes, until the feast was over. It was time to give the presents. Then they all went into the great testbed room, where the Princess Tiny lay sleeping in her mother old pearl cradle, and the 7 fairies began to say what they would each give her. The first stepped forward, and she shall always be as good as gold. The second, she shall be the cleverest princess in the world. The third, she shall be the most beautiful. The fourth, she shall be the happiest. The fifth, she shall have the sweetest voice was ever heard. The sixth, everyone shall love her. And then the wicked old cross fairy strode over to the cradle with long quick steps, and said, shaking a black cropped stick at the king and queen, and I say that shall prick her hand with a spindle and a dye of the wound. At this the queen fell on her knees and begged and prayed Tormentilla to call her back her cruel words, but suddenly the 7th fairy, the youngest of all, who knew Tormentilla well, and had hidden herself behind the curtains for fear that some such things happened, came out and said, "Do not cry. So, dear queen, I cannot quite undo my cousin's wicked henchman, but I can tell you that your daughter shall not die, but only fell asleep for 100 years, and when this past and gone, and shall come and awaken with her a kiss." So the king and queen dried their tears and thanked the kind fairy Heartsense for her goodness, and all the fairies went back to their homes, and things went on much as usual in the palace. But you can imagine how careful the queen was of her little girl, and the queen made a law that every spindle in the country must be destroyed, so that no more should be made, and if that anyone had a spindle should be heavily punished, if not executed at once. Well, the years went happily enough until the Princess Miranda was almost 18 years old, and all the 6 fairies had promised come true, for she was the best and the prettiest and the cleverest princess in all the world, and everybody loved her, and indeed by this time Tormentilla's spiteful words were almost forgotten. "Poor old thing," the queen would sometimes say. She was so angry at having been left out that she did not know what she was saying. Of course she did not really mean it. Now the king and the queen had to go away for a few days to a great entertainment that one of their richest nobles was giving at his country house, and as the princess did not wish to go, they left her behind with her ladies in waiting in the beautiful old palace. For the first two she amused herself very well, but on the third she missed her father and mother so much that to pass the time till they came back she'd been exploring the old lumber rooms, out of the way attics in the palace, and laughing at dusty furniture and queer curiosities she found there. At least she found herself at the top of narrow winding stairway in the tall turret. They seemed even older than all rest of the palace. When she lifted the latch of the door in the front of her, she saw a low chamber with curiously painted walls, and there sat a little old woman in a high white cap, spinning at a wheel. Just put the music on again. Wheel. For some time she stood at the door, watching the old woman curiously. She could not imagine what she was doing, for the princess had never seen a spinning wheel in her life before. Because I told you, the king had ordered them all to be destroyed. Okay. Immediately, deep silence fell all around. The little bird that the only moment before had been singing so sweetly upon the window still hushed his song. The distant hum of voices from country yard beneath ceased. Even Goody stopped short in the direction she was giving them. The princess and neither moved hand nor towards the poor little maid, and all because she had fallen fast asleep as she stood. Everything is sure went exactly as though spell had lasted 100 seconds of years. To be sure, Princess Miranda, pretty wild dress, such as one as Prince Florimon's great-grandmother might have worn, but that gave them something to laugh at. And now my story is done, for now hardly tell you that the prince and the princess were married, and made great rejoicings, and lived happily ever after, and that the 7 fairy godmothers danced at the wedding. So all ended well, and what could anyone wish? Okay, so that is the Sleeping Beauty story. So sorry guys if I have to skip a few pages. It was just the length of the video. I didn't want it to be too long. But I would say the video was, I'd say this was the longest ASMR video I ever did. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next ASMR video. Thank you guys so much for watching.